I want to welcome you all to Lakewood Ranch Golf and Country Club. It's our beautiful venue that we get to enjoy our headliner series in. I would ask that everyone make sure to silence their mobile devices so that we don't interrupt our speaker. And that at this time, if you would all please stand, we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. And at this time, I know I just said you may be seated, if our elected officials would please stand and wave. We have Reggie Bellamy here, County Commissioner Reggie Bellamy, County Commissioner Betsy Benak, County Commissioner Misty Servia, County Commissioner Priscilla Trace, I see her, and County Commissioner Carol Whitmore. I hope I didn't forget anyone. Thank you for your service and commitment to making our community such a wonderful place to live, work, and play. At this time, we'd like to recognize our headliner sponsors and platinum members in the audience. Realtor Association of Sarasota and Manatee is a headliner sponsor. If you're here, if you would please stand. Center State Bank, platinum member and a headliner sponsor. I believe we have here Brian Hall, Cabot Hart, did I say that right? Yep. Cabot Hart, Ross Hodges, and Chris Perkins. You're supposed to wave, Chris. We also have the Mosaic Company, platinum and headliner sponsor, and I believe Jackie Barron is here. Yeah, there she is. We also have Carr, Riggs & Ingram as a platinum sponsor, and I told Garrett he had to stand and bow. And then we also have Manatee County Government, which I know there's several of you here, platinum members, please. Sherry's over there, if you'd stand. So at this time, I would say please enjoy your lunch as it comes out, and we will begin the presentation at 12:10. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I know that most of you are still eating, and we've got the servers still doing a little coffee refills and things like that, but we're going to go ahead and get started. It is exciting to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to introduce our guest, but before I do so, I am Ray Dowling, a past chair of the Chamber and Florida Power and Light employee. It's my pleasure to be here. So sorry that Jackie Dzelski could not be with us today. For those of you who don't know, or maybe were wondering where she might have been, this is the last week of session, hopefully. We think it's going to end this week. And she is up there in Tallahassee right now, working on our behalf with regards to our priorities for the business community here in Manatee County. As many of you know, the advocacy is an important part of what we do here at the Chamber. I myself, and we were talking earlier, Terry Bailing, Ron Reagan, have some long history of going to Tallahassee and working on different Chamber issues, whether it's transportation, affordable housing, the red light cameras back in the day, all of those things. Every year we do take a trip to Tallahassee to work on your behalf, and it's our pleasure to be able to do that. Just a couple of plugs for a couple of events that are coming. Pints and Politics will be on March the 24th at the Naughty Monk. That's where we have the legislators and our local delegation come back to us and talk about how things were in Tallahassee and how the session will impact us as we move forward, and we have an opportunity to ask them questions as well. Also, too, put on your calendars, I believe it's the last home spring training game for the Pirates, but it's Manatee Chamber Day at the ballpark on Monday, March 23rd at Lecom Park. So if you're at all interested, there are tickets available. We would love to see you there. At this point in time, it's my pleasure to introduce Rex Jensen. He was promoted to president of Schrader Manatee Ranch in August of 2002, and he was chosen to become the CEO in February of 2005. In that capacity, Rex oversees all the businesses of SMR, not only the real estate development on its 31,000-acre land holding here in Manatee and Sarasota County, but also the agriculture and the aggregate mining. The company's award-winning development, Lakewood Ranch, is fully integrated, master-planned community, is ranked in the top 10 fastest selling in the United States from 2011 through 2017. And in 2018, Lakewood Ranch rose to the fastest selling multi-generational community in the U.S. Rex is a proactive leader known for getting the entitlement, green building, transactional, and financial network for Lakewood Ranch, as well as a number of other public-private partnerships with school boards, local, regional, and state governments, innovative business approaches to difficult private and public sector issues. He holds a bachelor's degree in history, economics, and political science from Michigan State. Go Green, go Spartans. And received a degree of Juris Doctor from the University of Michigan. Go Blue. The Chamber, we absolutely appreciate our wonderful partnership with Lakewood Ranch. For those of you who know, we have an office in Lakewood Ranch. We began planning of that about 15 years ago, and we actually moved into it 11 years ago. We appreciate Rex spending time with us today, sharing what Lakewood Ranch was in the eye of the future and what it is going to be in the future for us today. Thank you, Rex.
Thank you, Ray. Charles, are we good on the sound? Okay. Have just a few things I wanted to go over. Set the stage with a little bit of history of the larger ranch and Lakewood Ranch, and then tell you what's coming in the near future to a place near you. First of all, to set the context, and some of you have seen this before, I apologize, some of you have not, so I'll go over it for those who haven't. This is a very big place. You can see it from space. This is a NASA satellite photograph that I stuck the outline of the counties on. And the yellow thing here is us. It's about 50 square miles in size. It is located, 2/3 of it in Manatee County, 1/3 in Sarasota County, and before I started dealing with 2 counties, 2 regional planning councils, and everybody else, I used to be 6 feet tall and have hair. At any rate, the size of it, as I said, 50 square miles. And you may say, well, Rex, tell me what 50 square miles is, dumb it down for me. And let me try this on you. You could put the incorporated boundaries of Sarasota, Bradenton, Venice, and Palmetto on this property and still have several thousand acres left over. That's what 50 square miles is. It's owned by the Eline family from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, former owners of the Schlitz Brewery. They've owned it for about a century. We are, I think, one of the dominant properties in Southwest Florida for several reasons. One is location. We have 4 interchanges on I-75. Again, the size allows us to do many things that other developers, in the event that they own smaller parcels, simply couldn't do. We are not only near existing infrastructure, but we have built a lot of infrastructure on site in a lot of different ways. We can talk about that later. The ownership is very patient, which in real estate is imperative. There's been a lot of planning on this property, more so than many. The way that it's financed, I think, is really the key to its success. We're able to weather downturns, and as I said before, we've got a multi-decade task, and to do that, you simply have to have patience. Let me talk about what my company, Schrader Manatee Ranch, Inc., is for just a moment. It began as a timber operation, evolved into cattle after the timbering was done. We added row crops after that, sod, trees, citrus. We also have been very active in mining, and by mining I don't mean competing with Mosaic. I mean mining shell, the same kind of thing you pick up on the beach, only about 4 million years older. We were, in fact, while we were at our peak operation, the 5th most active aggregate mine in the United States, based upon tonnage mined here. The mining is largely done now because we ran out of shell. God only put it in certain places. So we've curtailed that operation. We have been in strange businesses like polo operations. We also have this facility, 3 golf courses, 2 clubhouses, a fitness center. We dabble in residential development. We also have done a little bit of commercial stuff. We're proud to have medical facilities in this community. We also own assets like Main Street, have interest in certain office buildings. The same people that owned this property a century ago owned it and planned it 30 years ago and operate it today. So there's been very good continuity over about a century of management policy and philosophy approach to business. So basically, if I could summarize what SMR is, SMR isn't a real estate developer. It's not a farmer. It's not a miner. It's an asset manager. It does those things with the property because that's the right thing to do with this key asset at the right time. So Lakewood Ranch today, and then I'll go back into the past. We are now the fastest selling multi-generational community in the entire United States. Last year we did 1,655 homes. This year we're on a pace to do, I believe, 1,800 so far. We are at right now over 15,000 households, over 40,000 residents. And as you drove here, or as you drive out, why don't you ask yourself the question, would you believe 40,000 people live on the other side of the fence on any of these main roads? That, I think, is a key to the design of Lakewood Ranch, and that's to the credit of Mr. Bob Simons. We have, as I said, about 40,000 residents, 5.5 million square feet of non-residential stuff of one type or another. 2.5 million square feet of that is office. And if you say, well, okay, tell me what 2.5 million square feet is with some kind of comparable, it's downtown Sarasota, is the same office square footage here and there. We have 16,000 on-site jobs. We've put over $6 billion with a B on the tax rolls of primarily Manatee County, but now beginning to do more in Sarasota. As I said, this is a real community with a hospital, with shopping opportunities, parks, trails, recreation, numerous churches. You could wire me to a car battery, and I couldn't tell you how many churches are on this property, but there are a bunch of them. We also have a number of schools, and the same is true there. I couldn't tell you if you gave me a test how many schools there are. I just know they're legion. We have a social fabric and an identity. I am fond of saying that Lakewood Ranch is not a project. It's a community. A project is like a tabletop. It's just flat. A community has that third dimension of a social fabric, of employment, of educational opportunities that really turn it into more than just a place to curl up after work. It's a place to live 24/7. It wasn't always this way.
I'm a politician, which means I'm a cheat and a liar. And when I'm not kissing babies, I'm stealing their lollipops.
I guess I should have turned the sound effects off. At any rate, go back to the 70s. This is the comprehensive plan of both counties put on the same map. They didn't do that themselves. So this was a consultant that helped us plan back in the late 80s the property. And this is the vision of local government as to what the long-term future of the community would be. And you can see that it stopped basically east of I-75, with the exception of having the long-term vision in Manatee County for trailer parks. So, but with the advent of I-75, you would have thought that here's a road that runs from Miami to Canada, and somebody locally would look at that as an economic opportunity. No. They looked at it as the Chinese wall to prevent the Mongolian hordes from the north from invading their pastoral setting. And SMR was too far out, too far east, to even think about for the long-term future. So you don't exist. This building doesn't exist. Never could exist in the mindset of the then current leadership of both communities. Now, not only could there be no future development on SMR's property, but we were the recipient of a lot of things that the community wanted to have, but just not next to them. Example, sewer plant, landfill, and what really was a severe gastric disturbance to the shareholders was they read in the newspaper that the airport was going to be moved out here on that Schroeder property without anybody ever talking to them Schroeders. So instead of being a dumping ground for what the community didn't want in its backyard, we began to develop our own vision.
I've got the president on Air Force One demanding answers.
We've got 11,000 people at NASA trying to figure that out right now. When we know, you'll know.
So at any rate, we did a long-term, thorough inventory of all 50 square miles of all these characteristics of the property, and that would give you some raw data for beginning to think about what you might want to be doing with it.
You got the plan, darling?
I always got the plan. They don't ever work, but I always got one.
And we've had, I don't know, several dozen of these things, but we've always had one. None of them have ever worked. We've never built any one of them. But the point of it is they all begin to suggest things, big picture things, like where the roads go, how many large arterials you'll need for a certain carrying capacity, what property you want to set aside, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you just refine that as you go forward by trying to listen rather carefully to the marketplace. So here's what the property looked like in 1984. I set the stage for the timbering operation had long since gone. The cattle operation was in full bloom. The row cropping operation was going on, and we were beginning some of the mining operations, as you can see. But after that, there was a gate at the I-75 University Parkway interchange, and it said Frontier Justice on the other side of this gate. There was no Lakewood Ranch in these days. So how did it happen? Well, originally there was a market. Again, we're asset managers, remember, and there was a market not for the land, but for the things that the land would produce. So we farmed and we did these other things. But then with the advent of I-75, as it began to be cartooned, and then as it actually took physical shape, and actually one of the last segments of I-75 was right in here somewhere where they made the hookup. We began to think, you know, this is a really special asset and needs to be treated in a very serious way. But even after we went through this huge, severe gastric disturbance of a planning exercise, nobody else believed in the place. We were on the wrong side of I-75. We were too far from anything to make a community development successful. In fact, Dr. Hank Fishkind, who sometimes speaks before you, been one of my long-term friends. The first day we met, he called me insane because he didn't believe this was going to work either. So we had to go it alone. And we began with the Sarasota Polo Club as our first foray into development. Then we did a community called Summerfield. And I'm very proud of Summerfield because it was for young working families. We could have fallen off a log in Sarasota and Manatee counties and become a retirement community. But we had a lot of land on the interstate and several other areas that we thought of as potential business park property. And to do that, you have to be a multi-generational community. So our first home sold for $89,000 to $129,000. And many of those people who bought those original homes have now purchased probably 5 different homes with us. We then got into the country club business, the corporate park business. And then from there, we just added a neighborhood at a time. In those days, again, the Lennars, the Pulte, the D.R. Hortons, the big builders did not believe in us at all. We had to make our entry to the residential market by working with the local builders who basically had limited capital resources and couldn't take down large chunks of property, and that was fine with us, but we basically sold this place a lot at a time. And when we ran out of one product, we would add another neighborhood of it. It was a lot of brain damage in that process, but it worked, and it created a very nice community. Well, we kept adding neighborhoods through the downturn. And then in the downturn, we felt like the Maytag repairman. The phone didn't ring. What do you do? How do you get people interested in this place? How do you get them to come to Lakewood Ranch? And we hit upon the idea of, well, you know, families tend to follow their kids around to some of these traveling sporting events, and we know how to grow sod. Let's plant 22 soccer fields and see what happens. Well, our first tournament, 20,000 people attended. Burger King ran out of hamburgers. Publix ran out of water. I got a call 2 days after the tournament from Subway saying, thank you. And I'm saying, well, why are you thanking me? Well, it's only September 3rd, and we've just made our month's quota for, sales. So the point of it is, this little asset really did, in those days, lift up the community, helped out a lot of small businesses, and got a lot of people acquainted with Lakewood Ranch who might not otherwise have come here. And when things got better, the pace really picked up. Larger communities, larger chunks of property began to be planned as communities. Del Webb, Lakewood National with Lennar, Esplanade with Taylor Morrison. And they now have taken down their second rounds of these communities with us, to the point that all of the property in the northeastern quadrant of SMR is now claimed by one community developer or another. That's amazing. It doesn't mean there are homes on it yet. There will probably be 7 to 10 years worth of time from the time each of these communities start until the time they sell out. But the point of it is, the character of Lakewood Ranch is now set in these areas. We have embarked upon an extensive road building program. I'll show you a slide of it later, but it's basically all of this stuff in white that you see. And we have added 4 square miles to the ranch because, again, we're out of land in the northern part of our property in Manatee County. One of the big things coming up is we're going to make another run at doing some more schools in Lakewood Ranch. There's a need for a high school, and there's a need for a kindergarten through 8th grade school in Manatee County. And we have a land swap about to happen with Manatee County. They currently own this property up here. When we finish this road in December, we will then have a closing where they give us this property back and take this for a K through 8 and put a new high school down at the Premier Sports Campus. Again, I couldn't tell you exactly when these are to start. They are kind of with student demand, but that continues to build, and I expect that you'll see it sooner rather than later. More schools, this time Sarasota County. We have a contract with them to acquire this site as a K through 12 school. Now you don't see many of them, but the point of it is they want to do another Pineview school in Sarasota County is up to the gills in kids. It's a gifted school program. They want to do another version, Pineview East, out here. They're doing it kindergarten through 12 to cover all of the grade levels. If they were to just do a high school, well, then you leave the middle school and elementary school uncovered. And they feel that as they build up the population in here, the elementary school would then be peeled off over to this site here. And then the middle school, as that population build up, they would be peeled off to a dedicated middle school. And hopefully then we would be serving all of the age needs of the community in Sarasota County right from day one. That's the theory. We have, as you know, for those of you who've driven Lakewood Ranch, or not Lakewood Ranch, Lorraine Road, remember where that mountain is that you go over? Well, that's really to facilitate a pedestrian crossing under the road because we knew that we'd have an elementary school several years down the road on that side, and again, to not have to have crossing guards and the danger of little Schmebley playing Frogger, and you just simply cross in safety, that's a big deal. So we're just trying to think ahead. Waterside, I want to tell you a little bit about the road improvements that we've just done. We are in the throes of completing a 9-mile road improvement program just in this area alone. And we are also about to start the last major road in the Waterside community that will link Lakewood Ranch Boulevard and Lorraine Road. Finally, we are in the process of permitting or designing and permitting a flyover between University Parkway and Fruitville Road to depressurize the use of these interchanges. Roger Amon, who was basically inflicted with this task, says it's a process that is driven by what? A slug driven by sloth driving snails, I think is your phrase. I mean, it's really slow and labyrinthian, but you'll get there. Here's what it is intended to look like. Remember the water tower that is on I-75 in Sarasota County? That's our southern border. So the road will bow to the north of it, and then the hope is we'll be able to just raise cattlemen up and tee into it. It's being engineered with bike lanes, sidewalks, the whole shooting match again, because you've got Benderson Park right across the interstate, and the inter-community ties are very important. And if we could make this a crossing somewhere in the midpoint between Fruitville and University Parkway, you can take a lot of heat off those interchanges, and that's a big deal. Affordable housing. We began with housing that would have classified itself as affordable housing were back in the day that an issue. We're going to be doing the same thing in Waterside in Sarasota County. Be approaching the county commission very shortly with an affordable housing program which is designed to put hundreds of these units into the market at the same time, as opposed to fooling around with 15 units here and 20 units there and 3 units there. Again, I think it will be innovative. I think it will be well received. And as I said, we have 16,000 people every day. They come here like lemmings in the morning. Like lemmings, they leave at 5 o'clock at night. Probably only 3,000 of those 16 actually live on the ranch. That's a ready-made market. We want to do this. And I think that we could make a very viable business opportunity out of affordable housing if we get the right permissions from Sarasota County. What's this one? Oh yeah, we're going to be doing a nature center. We have a 400-acre nature preserve. Right now it's romantically named Long Swamp. We'll figure something else out, but that's what it's called, Long Swamp. We restored that property years and years ago and brought it back to basically a pristine environmental condition, so it proves that you really can do it. And I think it would make a great nature center with nature walks, trails, observation towers, and the like. I mean, the bird life there is just phenomenal. At any rate, I told you that to tell you this. We're also working on a thing called Waterside Place. And if you want to know what that means in practical terms, go to Main Street. It's kind of like that, only I'm hoping we've learned from some of the things in Main Street and can do some things better in Waterside Place. The point of it is, if you think about Main Street's value is stamped on every house we've sold in Lakewood Ranch. And I think the same thing will be true in terms of a center like Waterside Place in the Sarasota County properties as well. So here's the site that we started with. Here's the water tower over in this area. You can even see downtown Sarasota if you really squint. But this is on we've got an 8-acre island park next to it. So if you could imagine 8 Braden Woods lots together, surrounded by water, that would be about the size of the park that we're talking about. So it's a good space. It's on a 36-acre peninsula on a 360-acre, 30-foot deep lake. Now, 360 acres is 1 mile long by a half-mile wide. A Yankee like me would call that a lake instead of the stormwater ponds that our marketing department foist off on you as waterfront property. This is a real lake. The buildings are going vertical as we speak. These are older photographs. They're a couple of months out of date. In fact, the apartments right next to it are really looking good. Probably plugged into FPL already. I'm hoping making you some money. This is the 8-acre island park right here. And it's just going to be a sensational project. The architecture style is a Dutch West Indies kind of thing. This is sort of what it looks like. I kind of hate dry pictures, so we've got a couple of videos that I'd like to show you that kind of liven it up a little bit. know, the thing about architecture, buildings, I mean, they're all important, but I call it an edifice complex, you know, sort of a psychological term. You need more. And the more that we're talking about here is people and activity. Again, it's this lifestyle, and then probably lifestyle after that I think is the important thing when you're talking about making a place inside of a community. And that, unfortunately, for her, falls to Monica Onstead and her team. But the point of it is, this is something we're used to, we do it every day, and we intend to enliven the daylights out of that place once we get it open. I'm going to end by talking really quickly about transportation. This is the network that we have just built, and if we get the right approvals, we will be extending per the county's long-term plan. And the point of it is, right now, you can drive on Lakewood Ranch Boulevard from Fruitville Road up to 301. Again, the county did a great job by getting the connectivity over the river. We've now connected 4 interchanges on I-75 to that. You can now get up to a 5th interchange up here just by not touching I-75. That's a big deal when I-75 breaks down, which you know that it does with regularity. We are working with the DOT and Manatee County right now on getting a signal up at the church, the Roman Catholic Church on State Road 70. That road is going to kill somebody or more people than it already has if we don't get this done. In particular, White Eagle is the road that connects with Rye Road here, and that too will take you up to US 301. So on Lorraine Road, you'll be able to get from Fruitville to 301, and the same thing on Lakewood Ranch Boulevard from Fruitville to 301. We are not going to allow that road to be open, however, until this light is up. We don't want to be responsible for any more crashes than have already occurred there. But I think that's on the way. We are working with the county again on 3 intersections along Lorraine Road, one of which we've just done, with the exception of we got to get the traffic light up at 44th in Lorraine. We'll be starting Rangeland in Lorraine very shortly, and working with the county and landowners to facilitate some improvements to State Road 70 in Lorraine. We're working with the county and DOT on a traffic signal at Post Boulevard, which is there by the Premier Sports Campus, right at that big curve on State Road 70. And then working with the Department of Transportation on the widening of State Road 70 east of Lorraine Road. So a lot of future stuff in the works there. Sarasota County, now that we've done Lorraine Road, is now talking about extending this road all the way down to I-75, which I think is an essential part of keeping people alive on I-75. We've had 2 horrid fatal crashes, multiple fatality crashes in the last few days on I-75. And it's just that people, A, either don't know how to drive, or B, you're putting too much local traffic on these roads, and we've got to be figuring strategies of getting the local traffic off these roads. These people who live in State Road 70, State Road 64, and University Parkway, not being able to go north and south too easily west of the interstate, have to use I-75. They don't have a choice. So to go to the mall from State Road 70, you have to go out on I-75 and then travel 3 miles and then go in. Strange. And these interchanges are going to continue to be a mess the more we put off taking traffic off those interchanges and the roads that lead to them. One of the keys to that is 44th Avenue. This has been in the county's plans. They've been talking about it for a long time. They've been fiddling around with pieces of it. But folks, it needs to be done. The people who drive State Road 64 every day, the people who drive State Road 70 every day would see immediate relief if that road were done and plugged into our road network. The end. I'll take a few questions. You know, I'm in kind of a Joe Biden mood, so keep it easy. Any questions? I didn't mean to pour cold water on your... Yeah.
Best estimate, time frame between Waterside today and Waterside of your videos.
February 2020, we're going to have it complete. 2021, yes. We're sort of, this is Joe Biden moment, I told you. February of 2021, the construction is done. We hope that we'll be largely leased up by that time. We didn't do any pre-leasing because to pre-lease on a project out in the middle of nowhere to local business people, you got to look them in the eye and tell them, well, when are you really going to be done? Who knows when it's in that kind of setting. So we decided to pay for it with cash, lease it up as we go, and not have to then give away to the store to do premature deals before you're really economically ready. So we've got a number of tenants lined up that are good tenants. One of them is Kilwins from St. Armand Circle, to give you, a taste, no pun intended. It's going to be a great project. Anyone else? Yeah. Well, you stop and think that we've now got 40,000 residents. How many shopping centers do you have in a town of 40,000 people? And we're now of a critical mass. I think that we can support another one, first of all. Second, this project will be surrounded pretty much by high-density living. Immediately adjacent to it is 849, I think it is, apartments. There are condos all the way around the lake. So it's a tighter, more walkable type of community than the rest of Lakewood Ranch is. I wish I could have done this earlier, but I couldn't get the density permissions early on to do this until lately. So I just think it's going to be different. I don't think it's going to detract from Main Street. And do bear in mind, we own the asset of Main Street. And the last thing I want to do is put a gun to its head, because then I've got to pay a mortgage on an empty building. So I think we can pull it off. I don't think it will adversely impact Main Street. The mall didn't adversely impact it. So if that won't put a hole in it, nothing will. I thought I saw other hands over in this direction. Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, I don't know where you live on Fruitville. Founders Club? Um, you were at a two-lane section, and in my opinion, the county should have four-laned out to the end of your community, out to Lorraine. They didn't. I'm not going to. And I intend to put every car on that road that I can until they four-lane the damn thing, like they should have in the first place. Anything else? Yeah. Yeah, if you drive there right now, you would see that our first neighborhood that is selling now is single family, two neighborhoods. Around the lake on the south side, that's all going to be pretty much multifamily housing because I'm trying to hit affordable price rates. And they're just you can't do it with big lots, Cocker Spaniels in the backyard, and the old Leave It to Beaver kind of thing. It just that doesn't work economically. So you've got to go to a townhouse villa type structure there to be able to get the price down so that the bulk of the people could afford to buy it. Then we've got a lot of area to the east. I don't know if you recall the slide, but where the elementary school will be, that whole area is single family as well. And we've got other thousands and thousands of acres of single family elsewhere in the ranch too. Yeah. You're most welcome.
So I grew up in Broward County, and I moved over here more than 20 years ago. How many people in this room have lived in Manatee County or Sarasota County for more than 20 years? So a good many of us have seen what you have done. Many of us back in the day, our life centered around West Bradenton or everything west. We didn't have anything out here. Now we have everything that we need. I watched Broward County and the changes and the mess that they've made over there, if you will, and you have not done that here. And we thank you for everything that you have done in this community and made a roadmap for others to follow in the future as well. So thank you very much. Just a couple of last housekeeping items. We have an upcoming headliner monthly membership luncheon in April. Will be April the 8th, and President Steve Carell from the University of South Florida will be at that. And then I'd like to lastly thank our headliner sponsors one last time: Center State Bank, the Mosaic Company, the Realtors Association of Sarasota and Manatee, and also Lakewood Ranch Golf and Country Club for your service today. And thank you, Rex, for your words of wisdom.
Thank you.